According to my guest today, Neal Bakshi, everything is energy. The problem is, most people walk through life completely unaware that the pain they feel and struggles they experience are due to an energetic imbalance. Neal Bakshi is a former Goldman Sachs investment banking vice president turned certified spiritual life coach, Reiki energy healer, and angel channeler. His book, Banking on Angels, and his TED Talk, Your Suitcase Can Cure an Epidemic, reveal how a traumatic event in Neal's life led him to his calling, being of service to others. Today we will talk about how he has helped himself and others uncover a more fulfilling way to live. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Welcome to the show today, Neal. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I've been looking forward to this for months now, ever since I saw you standing on the stage in Raleigh, North Carolina, giving your TED Talk live. I was truly inspired by your life story, quickly bought your book and consumed it with fervor. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. I'll put it up on the screens for those viewing the episode. It's called Banking on Angels. Before we dig into what your book really explores, tell us a little bit about your life journey. You were an investment banker, now a spiritual guide. How does that kind of transformation happen?
Totally. I mean, thank you so much for having me on the show, Rebecca. And even as you were saying, looking forward to this for months, I also felt these goosebumps because I know our conversation is going to be so fruitful. But it's been a wild journey. I feel like I've lived so many different lives just in this one lifetime already. Giving the brief 2-3 minute overview, I grew up in a spiritual family, meditating since the age of 5, but veered away from that as I focused everything on wanting to make a lot of money. And at the age of 12, decided I wanted to become an investment banker. And then worked really hard, studied, read all of the financial texts and news outlets, and went to New York University, majored in economics and history, and landed my dream job on Wall Street as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs. I worked for about 8 years on Wall Street in total, became a vice president at Goldman Sachs, closed over $100 billion of transactions for the firm in my time there, working on leverage finance and structured finance transactions. And things were going about as beautifully as I could imagine or hope, as my 12-year-old self would have envisioned for myself. I was genuinely living the life out of a movie, a Wall Street movie, hopping into fancy SUVs, going to Midtown Manhattan for board meetings with high-powered executives and C-suite executives, and traveling around the country for just closing dinners, even just to see clients, and working on some of the most notable transactions that have ever come across the leverage finance space. We did Tesla's inaugural bond deal, buyout of the UFC. We securitized Sprint's spectrum, so literally taking radio waves and securitizing invisible radio waves, which is just on a wild level. Built one of the largest order books Wall Street's ever seen. And so what ultimately changed was my mom, who really was the foundation and rock of my life, went for an outpatient thumb surgery to fix a partially torn ligament. It was a 30-minute procedure, but she could not be aroused after the surgery. She was intubated, rushed to the ER, where she spent about 3 weeks on life support in the ICU before passing on. And that completely changed my entire life. My mom loved me more than I loved myself. And that went really towards opening and embarking upon a huge self-love journey and personal healing journey that over the course of really about the following year after, I went really deep into meditation and started to receive messages from outside of myself. As that year went on, I began to communicate with what I now know to be angels, or my higher self, and the ability of communicating with my mom on the other side, or mediumship, came through very shortly after that channel was created, about a year, 15 months after her passing. So it's been a phenomenal journey that's led me to studying plant medicines with Shipibo shamans in the Amazon, to learning Reiki energy healing, becoming a certified life coach, a certified breathwork instructor, a certified multidimensional body worker. I've taken literally dozens of different certifications and courses because my interest has just pulled me in this direction, to the point where my perception of reality as I live it is vastly different from the world I perceived even 3-4 years ago, and has really led me towards leaving Goldman Sachs and starting my own work and sharing messages of love and hope and inspiration and joy, and helping people realize their true nature of consciousness in terms of who they really are.
It's really an incredible story. And I know you and I were talking a little bit offline before the podcast started. I did not do this on purpose, but my husband had recommended that I watch the 1987 movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen. We were talking about living the high life, traveling around in limousines with big executives, going to fancy dinners and things. And I kept thinking of you when I was watching the movie. And Michael Douglas gives this speech at a shareholder meeting, and he talks about greed is good. Greed clarifies, it cuts through and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. It was a very convincing speech. Just seeing you transition from that high profile role on Wall Street to something so incredibly different, spiritual healing, service to others. How did that change your perspective?
Yeah, the biggest thing that immediately comes to me is a transition from unconscious doing to more conscious, intentional awareness of what we're doing and why we're doing it. To no fault of maybe anyone's own, a lot of us go through life completely just unaware of the true intention behind why we're doing something. Maybe we've been indoctrinated into a societal belief system, a familial or cultural belief system, a religious belief system, any way of sort of viewing this world. Don Miguel Ruiz really talks about this beautifully in his intro to the Four Agreements. But we basically go through life indoctrinated into these belief systems and doing for the sake of either external validation or because this is what's expected in society, or this is what's viewed as the norm, or this is what's viewed as a successful life. If you make this amount of money and work this job and brush shoulders with these kinds of people, and that's what it's about. And oftentimes it's very unconscious, and we seldom stop to ask ourselves, why am I really doing this? What is the greater good this is offering? If I were suddenly gone tomorrow, would I really be fulfilled with the life I lived? And all of these sorts of questions really started to bubble up in me after my mom passed on. And afterwards, what happened was a very intentional understanding of, what do I really want to do and why do I want to do it? What purpose is this going to serve? What's the reason behind this? And I'm not saying that people are meant to go through life in a non-abundant state. I actually believe you are everything and abundance is your birthright. And the two are not mutually exclusive. But what matters is why we're doing something and what's the intention behind it, because that is actually what creates the driving force and the momentum to actually pull us forward toward the goal, instead of feeling like we're carrying the goal behind us. So really a shift from unconscious to conscious is really what pops out to me as the transition in my life.
The topic of conscious leadership is definitely bubbling up to the surface more and more. So there's definitely a need for it, and I feel like it's just at the beginning phase of really becoming something big and impactful. And I love what you're saying about intention. I want to talk a little bit about your cultural heritage, because I think part of that just natural leaning towards intention and spirituality. I actually had, in a previous episode, I interviewed one of my good friends in Bangalore, India, and the whole episode was on spirituality and leadership, because he also, from a cultural perspective, is very connected to spirituality, not necessarily in a religious sense, but just that deep sense of interconnection to yourself and to others. And I just naturally seem to be connected strongly to leaders of Indian heritage. And I just figured that out, I don't know, a year ago or so. And I thought, there's something happening here. Can you tell me a little bit about your cultural heritage and what may have helped you kind of innately come to this journey and this sense of conscious leadership and intention based on that natural spiritual connection you've had your whole life?
Yeah, and it's so interesting you bring this up, because one of the biggest things I actually struggled with as a first generation American was my cultural heritage. My
Mm.
parents immigrated to the United States, and when I was born, I basically tried to do everything I could possibly do to assimilate as an American. So that meant, actually, for me, how do I jettison off this side of feeling different, of feeling other, of being brown, of being Indian? And my entire childhood, I was actually very shameful of my heritage and background. I was racially harassed in elementary school, and it really formed a lot of my beliefs around, okay, I'm different. I need to assimilate. I need to do what all of the other people here do and not be or feel different regardless of how I look. And it's really only in the past few years, after I've gone through this personal spiritual journey, that I've started to realize the strength that the Indian heritage and culture actually possesses and has within it. And we look at Western countries and compare it to Eastern countries in both the ways of materiality and spirituality. The West is very rich in quite tangible, material, physical riches, whereas the East, India, and other countries in the East are more economically poor in terms of tangible material riches, but are very rich in the wealth of wisdom and spiritual knowledge. And this, I believe, is where the beauty of Indian culture becomes a profound strength, because as we think back to ancestral lineages and where I'm coming from, there is a wealth of knowledge from that region of the world, India, Asia, Egypt, all of that, where a lot of these ancient practices began. And as you look at these yogis who have practiced different forms of meditation or pranayama, they understand the deep truths, capital T truths, and knowing to what's actually happening here in a way that Western theory really relies on a lot of reason and science, whereas Eastern traditions and culture rely on personal experience through meditation is genuinely what it is. And so I was actually raised on not a religious path at all. Actually, I'm not Hindu or anything like that. I was raised on the spiritual path of self-realization fellowship as created by an Indian guru named Paramahansa Yogananda. And he teaches ancient and yogic scientific techniques of meditation, pranayama, primarily called Kriya Yoga. And it's believed that this ancient science of Kriya Yoga is so old that it has been practiced by the likes of Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, ascended masters of very high spiritual frequency. And he literally passes down the technique of practicing this form of pranayama meditation. And you build up your energy through forms of concentration and meditation, stillness of the body. And then what happens is you actually reach these states where you're able to pierce through the veil of what I consider here as our physical reality to go beyond that, which is why I believe this path that I was raised on, which teaches this scientific and yogic technique of meditation, is actually what helps you really awaken to your true nature of consciousness, and also all of these other gifts, the gift of mediumship, the gift of channeling angels, all of the intuitive spiritual blessings that I have in my life now. I really contributed to the wisdom and knowledge, ancient knowledge, that has been passed down through the millennia in these ancient cultures, which modern science is just now beginning to just touch the tip of the iceberg.
That's fascinating to me because I studied Tibetan Buddhism, and when we were talking about the teachers that I interacted with called it the cocoon. So kind of like just thinning out the cocoon of that, the world around us that's very material and reason based, as you said, and kind of thinning that out to really feel that vibration with other people. So you talk a lot about energy and vibration in your book. And it actually made me think a lot about a coaching program that I recently went through with speaker and best-selling author Mel Robbins. I know a lot of people know who she is. She has a podcast as well. And one of her modules was called Training Your Brain for Magic. And she talks about the reticular activating system in your brain. And so basically, when you train your mind that something's important to you, the RAS changes in real time and starts to allow into your conscious mind things that you don't normally notice. And she actually gave us an exercise to do. We were supposed to go out on a walk and look for naturally occurring hearts. So she used the example of heart-shaped rocks. So I was going out in my neighborhood looking for heart-shaped rocks, looking for heart-shaped leaves, even heart-shaped clouds in the sky. So, as soon as your brain knows that this is something as important that you need to focus on, then all of a sudden you're seeing a lot of that thing. And so you talk a lot about synchronicity in your book. Is there a parallel between this magic happening in your brain and the synchronicity that you referred to? And how does that connect with the energetic vibrations that you were also referring to?
1,000%, yes. And magic is synchronicity. I use the two words interchangeably. I love magic. I'm a lover of magic in every single way. And that's because I genuinely believe that all of life is magical, every single aspect of it in every single moment. The fact that we're even here right now experiencing this, living this moment is a miracle in and of itself. 4.2 billion years of Earth and everything that has transpired with every decision of every conscious being has transpired to literally bring you here in this very moment, listening to this podcast. That is a miracle of experience and existence. And what we're doing as we go through our life and start to train our brain's RAS is we're telling it what we want to focus on. It's like playing the game Punch Buggy, no punchbacks. And you may have played this driving down the highway growing up, and it's different now, maybe not too many VW Beetles out there, but you're telling your brain, I want to focus on seeing a VW Beetle so that I can punch the person next to me. And then the next time they see one, they'll punch you. But you're telling your RAS, this is what I want you to focus on. And when you tell it what you want it to focus on, you will continually be met with situations and circumstances which validate the belief that you have. And this is where magic comes into play. And this is where the perspective that you view life through entirely comes into play. Because if you view life as something that is hurtful and harmful and out to get you and is going to just rip you down and you're a victim of it, you will continually be met with situations that validate your experience, because everything here is vibration. Let's think about a guitar. A guitar, if you pluck a string and you record it and then you play that back on a speaker and put the guitar over it, the guitar will play the same string as the speaker is playing it. It's called resonance, and it's a very common concept in the musical theory world. Well, because everything here in the physical matter that we're existing in is born of innate vibration. You can call it the cosmic Om, the Holy Ghost, the Word, the Holy Spirit, all of these things. It's all vibration that creates matter. Well, the frequency that you resonate at, you will then be met with situations in your life which will validate that experience. And so what you do as you notice this magic, like the heart-shaped rocks and clouds, is you're telling your brain, I want to focus on loving things. I want to focus on seeing the beauty in the world. And then you start to notice that more and more. And in the beginning, it's like training your brain. And I have this practice where I write down every morning 3 pieces of magic that occurred in my life over the past 24 hours. And what you're doing is just like you're training your muscles in the gym, you're training your brain muscles, you're training your RAS to completely shift the perception of how you see the world around you. And as a result, it then no longer needs to become as, I'd say, as like hardcore of a practice, but you naturally begin to shift your own energy into seeing that magic is happening all around you in every moment, and that the synchronicities continue to unfold. They happen at such a rapid pace now, it's hard for me to even just note 3 things. It's like my entire day is synchronicity in every form. And so that's the beauty of what your life can just become in just a couple of years of practicing mindfulness in this way.
You actually listed out 5 pillars in your book of greater fulfillment, and synchronicity is one of them. So you talk about training your brain and really making it this natural thing, so you don't have to work as hard. It's just something that you're automatically doing on a regular basis. So can you talk a little bit about the other 4 pillars and how they each guide you to a more fulfilled life?
Totally. And so the 5 core pillars, and I recently added one more, just since my book was published, but the 5 core pillars are 3 things you're grateful for, 3 things you're letting go of, 3 affirmations you have for yourself, 3 pieces of magic you noticed in the last 24 hours, synchronicity, 3 things you're manifesting for yourself in the present tense with gratitude. And then the last thing I recently added was 1 thing that I could do today that will bring me joy. And all of these aspects, when I holistically look at it, I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss, who's famous for his 4-hour work week and 4-hour body. And he basically like biohacks his way into creating this optimal lifestyle for himself. And I kind of view it as creating this optimal spiritual, personal growth, mental perspective for myself of the world I want to live in. And gratitude is so important because it opens the heart aperture. It's one of the easiest things you can do to raise and lift your energetic vibration. And I do this when I do angel readings with people. I guide them through a beginning gratitude practice, because if I am able to lift them into a higher vibrational state, they call in their beings of unconditional love. It makes the channeling that much easier. So gratitude is number one in my book because it is the most simple thing you can do in your life to elevate your vibrational frequency at a tangible level, because it turns what you have into enough. And there are always things you can be grateful for, always. And it immediately is one of the greatest jump starters of perspective shift that you can ever have. Because even if you think about it, like when you're grateful, you can't simultaneously be hateful or mad or angry. It's like the two are just like, they're diametrically opposed. So you're quite literally shifting your energy. So that's gratitude. Second is letting go. The Heart Math Institute has been able to detect now that the human heart and energy field can be measured, tangibly measured, up to 3 meters away from the body. And the heart is the largest electromagnetic field in the body. However, we go through life seldom actually letting go or releasing the emotions, which are energy and motion, of the life that we experience. And what happens is it often gets stuck in our heart center. And letting go, when you consciously let go of things, you are quite literally freeing up energetic capacity for your body to receive and welcome in more in its everyday life. So even things as small as like, I made a joke at dinner that no one laughed at, or this person didn't respond to me and now I'm really anxious about if they like me, or whatever that is. When you bring conscious awareness to it and say, okay, I'm letting go of this. And then you can go deeper. You can say, I let go of superficial judgments of others. I let go of my attachments to expectations or material desires that are only rooted in egoic wants. You can go deeper in any realm of this, but as you let go, which is, I believe, one of the core aspects of our existence here, it's like letting go of all these beliefs, you actually then start to realize the true underlying essence of what you are. So that's why letting go is so important. It really creates space in you to receive. Next one is affirmations. Have been really powerful for me. They help to rewire your brain. There's the standard I am affirmation. I am strong, I am powerful, I'm healthy, I'm loving, I'm worthy. But the mind can also undermine this at times. And so I learned a very interesting practice called lofty questions from someone named Christy Marie Sheldon. And she basically says, ask your brain a question as to why you are blank. So why am I financially abundant? And then what I do for myself is I begin to answer the question, because then you're telling your brain, I already am this. Tell me why I am this. And then you get to already see instances in your life which you already are that. Well, I'm financially abundant because I can pay for my own rent. I can pay for my own living expenses. I'm financially abundant because I can pay off my credit card every month. Okay, well, now you're actually telling your brain tangibly why you are financially abundant. And therefore, we talk about the brain's RAS. It will naturally then start to be programmed to find more of those instances in your life in which you are naturally financially abundant, therefore attracting you more of those situations into your life based on the law of resonance. So that's affirmations. Next one is 3 pieces of magic. This is my favorite one, or synchronicity.
Mine too.
Right? So this can be as simple as the angel numbers, which are so important, like 1111, 222, 333, 444. They all carry vibrations and meanings, according to Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher. Well, angel numbers can be one. Instances of meetings with people coming into your life, someone saying words in the gym right as you're walking into the gym and being like, okay, that's literally exactly what I needed to hear, or what I was thinking, or this is something I actually haven't been doing but have been meaning to get back into doing. It can be synchronicity of the perfect song coming on shuffle on your Spotify playlist. It can be the synchronicity of thinking about a friend and they suddenly send you a text and you haven't spoken to them in a while. The synchronicity of there are so many ways that this shows up for me in my life that it's just like off the charts at this point, like numbers on dinner receipts, or you can ask for a specific sign. My sister's like, okay, I want the sign of a ladybug if I'm meant to take this job, and the sign of a grasshopper if I'm meant to take this job. And suddenly she's met with like 3 signs of ladybugs, and the job person messaging her in the same day saying, when can you start? And she's like, okay, I think I got the sign. So all of these things, these are all pieces of magic that I think a lot of times we overlook as just coincidence. But when you start to peer through the veil of reality, I personally don't see coincidences as a thing anymore. It's everything here has its purpose and meaning in the way that we prescribe to it. And then lastly is manifestation. And this is so topical and such a buzzword these days, but manifestation is really the ability to bring into your life what it is that you desire with a deep intention, your own resonant energetic field, action to co-create that. And then lastly, detachment from the expectation of the outcome with the belief that may this or something better happen. And so I usually start my manifestations in the sense of, I am grateful that I blank, as if it has already happened, as if I'm already living it, because that's the resonant aspect of it. Gratitude you infuse into it because gratitude is something that naturally raises and elevates the energetic vibration of something. And then lastly, I've also seen that when you see ways in which 2 or more people can benefit from your manifestation, it actually comes into hold and reality far more rapidly, because it shows that you are not just looking out for a self-serving mechanism for yourself, but are actually interested in sharing this abundance with others. So that aspect of service comes into play here, and that amplifies a manifestation. And then lastly, joy, one thing a day that can bring you joy. Part of your experience here is to live in joy. You are meant to live in joy. And if you can consciously bring awareness into one thing you can do in your life on a daily basis that will bring you that joy, oh man, you're doing so much good for yourself.
And I can say without hesitation that this conversation is bringing me joy. So thank you so much for that. I can check that one off the list for today.
I love it.
Um, so as we kind of wrap this conversation up, well, I'm going to go back to the title of your book, Banking on Angels. So you talk a lot about angels. How does that? How do you channel your angels? Like, what does that mean? Where do
Yeah.
you start?
Yeah. So it started with me noticing numbers and repeating number patterns. And it wasn't just like a couple times a day, it was 20, 30, 40 times a day. Back when I was living in New York and working on Wall Street, numbers were my life. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, this is weird. This isn't normal. There's something deeper. And as I went deeper into that, I started researching numerology, and everything started to just unfurl from there. And I started to then basically communicate back and forth with these things that people called angel numbers with numbers. So I would wake up at 3:33 a.m. I would set my alarm for certain times. I would be like, okay, like maybe let's play this fun, cute little game. And then I started to go into meditation and be like, okay, like can I ask for a message, and like what do I need to know today to live my highest path, for my highest good? And then I was somehow guided to a deck of angel cards, and then I started to just pull an angel card for myself after meditation every morning and night, and started to just learn what these cards meant, and then started to, as I got more comfortable, just like close my eyes after pulling the card, and just be like, okay, like what's the deeper message here? What do I need to know? And then maybe a few words came, and then as a week or two went on, maybe a sentence came, and as time went on, then maybe a few sentences came, and then a couple months later, it just became a full-blown dialogue and a conversation that I was having with a friend. And we often stifle children and believe that, maybe they're talking to an imaginary friends or any of this, but in reality, imagination is the bridge to the invisible world, and we lose that imagination as we get older. We lose that childlike wonder and play and fascination. And even the Bible says this. It's like, ye who is like a child will make his way into heaven. And it's meant to be taken in the sense of approach life with this childlike wonder and fascination, as if you're playing in this experience. And as you do that, the doors start to open to you, because you begin to use your imagination to create in this realm, which is rooted and that is born from the causal world and realm of thought. So thought and imagination then materializes into physical tangible reality. So it's a process that started with again, numbers, angel cards, meditation as the core base, really. But I view angels as just a fractalization of the singularity of source consciousness that we all are. And angels I also perceive as as you roll this fractalization back up into itself, it's your higher self, it's your angels, it's your guides. Like it all comes back into this innate oneness and singularity that we are. And that is when we really begin to look through the veil of the illusion, past the divisiveness, past the fear, and begin to actually relate to people and everything here through a lens of true and genuine unconditional love.
That's beautiful, and all I can think of is I think it's a quote that comes from the Bible. Be still, know He is holy, know He is God. I'm not Christian. I mean, I grew up with a Christian background and studied the Bible in my childhood, but that resonates with me so much because I think we're moving at such a fast pace that we don't realize how impactful it is to just be still, connect with ourselves, connect with the world around us. Because if we take that opportunity to do so, like a child, sitting still alone and, playing with your toys, there's so much that you can uncover that we don't even see or connect with on a daily basis because we're just not taking the time to just be still.
The aspect of stillness is so important, and this is a message that I actually frequently receive in my meditations. The message is simple. It's be still and know that I am God, and that's what the message is. And I'm like, wow. And recently I saw a documentary where there's a concept known as cymatics, where you put vibration and frequency through water or through sand, and it quite literally creates patterns, geometric patterns that are intelligently organized. And they did an experiment where they put basically sound frequencies through water. They've shown that water can maintain imprints. So even if you put someone's picture underneath it and put the water on top of it and look at it after like freezing it, it can literally has like this image on a microscopic level of that image embedded in it. But then they did one that was a vibrational frequency through the water, and it created these like sacred geometric patterns of like ellipses and like almost like you see in like church cathedrals, those like big circle windows that have these like crazy patterns and fractalized patterns. And then what they did was they put cornstarch into the water and they put frequencies through the water. And the cornstarch literally started to become like 3D matter. It almost looked like it was like people moving together in a way that was like, wow, when you really get to the nature of why stillness is important, because it allows everything that is then created in vibrational matter to drop back down into its 0 point, into its still point, where St. Francis of Assisi has an amazing quote that is, the one who is looking is what is looking. And when you go into that deep stillness, you can actually experience what that really means. You are the one who is looking back at yourself. You are the one who is searching. It is a circular reference in that way.
That's amazing. You've given us something to think about as we move into the holiday season. And it's always a mad rush, right? Go out and buy presents, get the family together for Thanksgiving. Let's all try to be still a little bit this holiday season, take care of each other, connect as best we can, and be grateful.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Neal, for joining us today. It was really, really a pleasure having you on today's show. And for those of you who want to connect with Neal, I know you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn. Buy his book. I recommend the audio version because he narrates it, and it really is a wonderful way to really connect with his work. Anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can reach out to me, Instagram, LinkedIn, my website, nealbakshi.com. One of my favorite things to do is I lead retreats around the world in sacred spaces. So Egypt, Mexico, Greece, different places like that. And I work with the ministries of culture in these lands to create very unique experiences, like inside the Great Pyramid, on the full moon, with a voice activation ceremony. And we have very fun times, and it's meant to be an awakening of dormant DNA within you to help you really remember who you are on so many levels. And that's my biggest passion. So yeah, come join me somewhere around the world and come play.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for being a part of my day today, Neal.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, Rebecca.
This podcast is designed to help busy business leaders create an inspired and engaged workforce. I am building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you know someone who I should interview or should be part of this community, please connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.